Then on Sports Central, we go for our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Virginia Tech Hokies, the team that went 3-8 overall in the 2022 season. You could definitely call 2022 a rebuild season for this team. First year under Brent Pry. Definitely could have been better, but all this team being 2023, and what can you expect out of the Hokies in the 2023 season? That's what we'll be talking about here today. We'll be analyzing this team and break their schedule game by game in this video. Let's get started with a quick recap of 2022. Once again, the record being 3-8. This is a team that was just too inconsistent last season. I mean, also the close losses that this team took. They had three losses that were very close last season, and that kind of came back to bite. But beat Boston College and Wofford both in convincing fashion, but they did lose to Old Dominion on the road week 1, and we kind of knew, I think, after that loss there that this was going to be a bit of a down season. I mean, bad losses to West Virginia, North Carolina, and Pitt. Of course, lost to Miami by 6. That was a close game there against a decent Miami team. NC State went on the road there, lost to them by 1. Also lost to Georgia Tech by 1. Both of those 1-point losses. That bites a bit, definitely. And then the next week after that, lost to Duke on the road, beat Liberty on the road 23-22 in what would be their last game of the season. So at least somewhat ended off the season on a high note with a 1-point win there. Of course, the Virginia game got canceled, but otherwise just a bit of a down season. I mean, you got to consider too, this is a Virginia Tech team that usually is a big contender in the ACC. I mean, you consider since 1992, this team has not been to a bowl game only twice since 1992. That's 30 years ago. And I mean, those 2 years were 2020 and 2022. So this is usually a consistent contender in the conference, and just, I mean, first year under Brent Pry, it definitely could have been better. But with that, let's look forward to 2023 now with your roster previewing this team. Grant Wells is coming back, which last season, I mean, he was halfway decent. He definitely has got some improving to do. And if this team is going to be good in 2023, if they're going to be better, Grant Wells has to play better. I mean, last season, 2,100 yards, 9 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, a 59% completion rate, rushed the ball for 200 yards and 6 touchdowns as well. So not too bad. But, I mean, still, this is a team that, I mean, even in the backfield, I mean, last season, this team had some good depth. Really no standout in the backfield, but a few good players, all of which who are leaving pretty much. Keyshawn King is transferring out. Jalen Holston is gone. So that is a bit of a concern. The receiving core, Caleb Smith is gone, the top in receiving. You got Dwayne Lofton coming back, who is the second wideout, and then your top 2 tight ends, who were 2 of your top 4 in receiving from last season, and Nick Gallo, and then Daquan Wright. So receiving core, there's some potential there. There's going to be more experience in 2023, but still, it's just a matter of whether or not these key players, these key skill players, can improve. Looking forward to 2023, because offensively, this team definitely struggled at many points last year, and even the defense too. I mean, this defense showed some promise at points, but in other games like the North Carolina game, the Pitt game, just allowed too many points. And so you consider the defense losing 2 on the D line, 1 linebacker, and then 4 in the secondary. So this defensive secondary especially has got a bit of uncertainty, but brings up the question, will this team return to ACC contention anytime soon? I mean, this is a big season, I think, for Virginia Tech. Obviously, Brent Pry in his second season now, and obviously year 1 was definitely disappointing. But you consider, I mean, this team is mainly adding players from the transfer portal. Let's look at that now. Their main players that they're adding are receivers. I mean, you got 4 players coming in from the transfer portal that are expected to be starters in 2023. Those are your 3 receivers, Ali Jennings, Daquan Felton, and then Jalen Lane. And then also Derek Canteen, a defensive back coming in from Georgia Southern. Otherwise, you're losing a couple of players with Keyshawn King and then Armani Chapman. And obviously Kyron Drones, who's coming in from Baylor. That's obviously a big add there. We'll see if he can maybe take over Grant Wells' position, if he can develop and be better. Last season really didn't play too much for Baylor, so we'll see what he can do. That does bring some optimism, I think, to this offense, and it does raise the ceiling as well, I do think, for this team, even though there definitely is, I mean, this is still a pretty inexperienced, a pretty young team, and honestly, that's not a bad thing either. I mean, 2023 might not be great for this team, considering how inexperienced this team still is. But for the future, if this team can retain this talent, I mean, say in a couple of years from now, we could see this team in contention once again. It's just a matter of retaining that talent. But recruiting wise, not too bad. This is a program that, I mean, the past 30 years has been very successful, and recruiting not too bad. 39th in the country, 6th in the ACC, got 2 4-stars coming in, and then 25 3-stars. I've got this team at a 7 out of 10 on the future forecast meter. Obviously, the future is a little bit uncertain right now considering how 2022 went, but I still think that this is a program that, I mean, once again, you consider the past 30 years, this is a program that is known to be successful. They've only missed a bowl game twice in the past 30 years, and obviously last season was one of them. But I still think the future is good for this team. And with that, it's time to take a look at the schedule now. So you got Old Dominion week 1. This is a critical game here. I mean, taking on them first Saturday of the season, night game. I mean, and considering the loss that you had last season to them, this is a huge game in week 1 there. Considering the future of this team, then I mean, it's a very winnable game. That's just not a game you should lose there. And then Purdue and Rutgers, you get to play 2 Big Ten teams in your non-conference slate, both of which who should be bottom feeders in the conference this season. I think Purdue falls off quite a bit. Rutgers is usually towards the bottom. You do have to play them on the road though, and then you got Marshall on the road, then Pitt at home. You got Florida State on the road to kick off October, and then Wake Forest at home. You got somewhat of a late bye there, and then you take on Syracuse at home. You got Louisville on the road, Boston College on the road in November, NC State at home, and then Virginia on the road to finish out the regular season. So you're on the road for 3 of your last 4 weeks, and obviously in September, your 2 Big Ten non-conference opponents. But looking at September here, so you got Old Dominion at home. I do think you beat them convincingly. That's just not a game that you should lose. Last season didn't go as planned, but I think you get it done this season, and you start the season actually 2-0 with a nice win over Purdue there. So you got Purdue coming to town, and last season they were a good team. I mean, they won the Big Ten West, but this season, I mean, that's going to be a team in a different situation now. So I do think Purdue falls off quite a bit. You get a nice win there. It's going to be close, but you do get a win there against Purdue. And then Rutgers on the road. This is a winnable game here for Virginia Tech. I'm actually taking Rutgers to win that matchup. I mean, last season they weren't great, but they did show potential at times. And I mean, Rutgers I don't see being a bowl team in 2023. I think they're kind of at a similar level to Virginia Tech right now. And so I do want to take Rutgers. It's a close game. Absolutely could go either way, but I'm going to favor the Scarlet Knights for now. Then Marshall on the road, I do think you beat them. So you're 3-1 heading into the Pitt matchup, which I do think is a loss. Pitt's been really good the past couple of years. I think they could be around that same level in 2023. I do think they're maybe more of a 7 or 8 win team, but they're still a good team. And I mean, this is a game that could go either way, but I'm going to favor Pitt there. So you lose that one, then Florida State on the road. This one I'm pretty confident in taking the Seminoles. That's a team that is going to be a national contender once again this season. Really like Florida State a lot, plus a brutal place to play. I'm going to take them. Then Wake Forest, you get a nice win here. Wake Forest could be a bowl team again in 2023. So you come back after 2 losses. You get a nice win heading into the bye. Then Syracuse at home. I can get a nice win against them too. I think Wake Forest and Syracuse kind of around that same level, and so you get a couple of nice wins. They're 5-3 heading into November, and this is a crucial month because all you need is 1 win to get back to a bowl game, and I do think you get 2 wins. So I think you get up to 7-5 this season. You lose to Louisville and NC State, both teams who could be halfway decent in 2023, but I think you go on the road to Boston College. You beat them in a close one. And then Virginia on the road, I do think you take care of them. Virginia's in a tough situation. Looking forward to 2023. So I think you finish at 7-5 next season. And this is a record that maybe isn't super impressive, but I think it's a step in the right direction. That's what this team needs right now, is a step in the right direction. I think this team gets it done, and it makes a step forward in 2023. I think for the range, your ceiling isn't super high. I think 9-3 is the ceiling for this team. I don't see this team being a big contender this season quite yet, but I mean, this is still a team with a lot of young talent. I think in the future, give it a couple of years, this team could very well be back into contention again in the conference, but I think this season it's still kind of in that rebuild phase. But it is better than last year, that's for sure. I think the floor is 4-8. So the floor is a bit low, but I do think 7-5 for the prediction is very reasonable. If you can go 7-5, win a bowl game, get up to 8 wins next season, I think that'd be a really good season for this team and really restore some optimism for the future of the Hokies. But with that, that's going to wrap things up for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the Hokies, your predictions and everything. And I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.